Hello, I'm Chris Hansen, and this is Dateline NBC, To Catch an Emperor. Today, we are interviewing one of the greatest Romans of all time, Julius Caesar.
Chris Hansen, what are you doing here?
Why don't you take a seat?
Am I going to get in trouble?
That's not up to me. We're going to ask you some questions about your life. What was your family's background?
I was born on July 12th, 100 BC, and the month was later named after me. Our family were descendants of Aeneas, who founded Rome. My father was praetor of Rome, which is the second highest position in the government.
What was the state of Rome like when you were born?
Rome was falling apart when I was born. During my youth, a dictator named Sulla took power and corrupted the government, so I vowed I would try to fix it. I started to make political connections, and Sulla arrested me because of this. Luckily, I wasn't killed.
So, I hear you were captured by pirates, and while you were captive, you joked around like you would crucify them when you were out. But once you were free, you raised a fleet, hunted them down, and crucified them. Why did you do this?
Well, I'm a man of my word, and when I say I'm going to do something, I am determined to do it. This shows in my political philosophy as well.
So, what positions did you hold during your rise to power when you eventually became consul and then dictator?
I began as an orator and lawyer, but I joined the military and became a governor's assistant in the province of Asia. I went to Spain to repair that province's finances. Then I became quaestor, which put me in control of the treasury of the state. Then I became curule aedile, which put me in charge of public finances. I spent some extra money on public festivals and games, which gave me public approval. Then I became praetor and joined the first triumvirate.
So what's this first triumvirate you speak of?
It was an alliance between Crassus, Pompey, and me that furthered all of our political goals.
Who were Crassus and Pompey?
They were two leading politicians in my time. Pompey was a military commander in Spain who helped put down the slave revolt by Spartacus and was greatly celebrated for his victories. He joined the triumvirate because the Senate said no to all of his proposals, including giving land to his veterans and accepting his Asian agreements. Crassus was a wealthy citizen who funded an army and helped put down the slave revolt as well. He joined the triumvirate to repair his financial difficulties.
So how did these politicians help you on your road to becoming consul?
Their support, as well as the support of the common people, helped me to win the position of consulship. I was only consul for 1 year, and then I was given governorship over 3 provinces in Gaul: Cisalpine Gaul, Transalpine Gaul, and Illyricum.
Now, to my understanding, Gaul was not fully in Roman control when you took over and became governor. So what was it like when you went there?
When I became proconsul, which is another name for governor, Gaul was not truly controlled by Rome. It was a collection of independent tribes. But 9 years later, when I was done being proconsul, Gaul was completely under Roman control.
So, through your conquest, how did you take Gaul?
My conquest started when Germany tried to attack our allies and invade Gaul. My army successfully pushed them back, and I continued to invade northern Gaul. I had victories against tribes such as the Helvetii, and even though I lost a massive number of troops, I still came away with the victory. I also fought other tribes, such as German tribes, and defeated them, as well as the Helvetii, who I mentioned earlier, in the same summer. I defeated multiple Belgian tribes and the Nervi in my expedition as well. Because of all this, I was given another term as governor.
So, your next term, what did you do?
During my later time ruling Gaul, I led attacks on Germany and Britain. These were technically illegal, but they gained me much fame anyway. There was also a revolt of several of the tribes, and I had to use a force of 250,000 men to quell the rebellion.
So, public approval was high in your standards, so why did you stop being governor?
I stopped being governor because the Senate overthrew me. The people did not agree with this decision, but the Senate threatened to kill any tribune, which are people who could have stopped this, who tried to stop them. The Senate tried to repress the people who supported me, which was unjust, so I had no choice but to invade Italy and seize power.
So this sounds like a lot like a civil war to me. So explain the situation.
Well, I successfully marched my troops to Rome, and I took over the city. However, I still had many other enemies to defeat. My former ally Pompey joined with the Senate and tried to stop me. I chased him to Egypt, which was in its own civil war, where he was killed. Egypt tried to form an alliance with me because of this, but I was furious that they did this without telling me.
So, you say you were furious with Egypt, but didn't you have a relationship with Cleopatra, the Queen of Egypt?
Well, that may be true, and I did make her queen, but that doesn't justify the Egyptians stealing my kill.
So again, what were your strategies in battle?
Before the battle started, I always made reconnaissance of the area. This way, I could make sure I always got the upper hand. In battle, I would change formation due to terrain, which allowed me to surround my enemy.
So, what became of Rome after you took over?
Well, the Roman Republic basically stopped existing after I took control. I reformed the Senate and the aristocracy, and I became a king in everything but name. I then used money to make domestic reforms.
So, who was your biggest inspiration that inspired you to go after your lofty goals?
Well, Alexander the Great was a tremendous role model to me. One time I wept in envy of him at the foot of his statue for everything he had accomplished so quickly.
Now, in your will, it states that you were to give all your possessions and power to Octavian, your adopted son. So why would you give it to him instead of Mark Antony?
First of all, how do you know what's in my will? Regardless, I see Octavian as a very competent young man with lots of potential, but I won't go into too many details because my will is supposed to be secret.
So what do you say to those people who do not believe in monarchy?
I would agree with them because my rule as dictator certainly did not mean I was king. The Senate was still in existence, and simply all that I did was stop corruption in the government. Rome needs a man like me to make change and establish Rome as a world-renowned power, which is exactly what I did in conquering Gaul.
So, what would you say your legacy, or in other words, the biggest mark that you left on Rome and in history itself?
I would say my biggest accomplishment was changing Rome from a republic to an empire, because my revolt effectively eliminated the Senate's power.
So now, there has been word of rumor going around about Brutus being involved, your longtime companion, in a plot to kill you. So what are your thoughts on this?
Brutus? Brutus, are you kidding? Brutus is a longtime friend and somewhat of a son to me. The Roman people are widely satisfied with the job I'm doing. Who has any reason to kill me? Next question, please.
So, finally, for all the aspiring dictators out there, any words of advice as to what they have to do to be exactly like you?
It's all about hard work and determination. I put myself into major debt to merely hold a political position, and I worked my way from the bottom all the way to consul and then in turn dictator. Get an education and give the people what they want.
Alright, thank you. Tragically, Caesar was later killed by Brutus and other politicians, and was mourned by most of the Romans. In fact, he was the only Roman to ever be cremated in the Forum. His dictatorship paved the way for what later became the Roman Empire. Caesar's adopted son, Octavian, later became the first Roman Empire. This has been Dateline NBC. To catch an emperor, tune in next week when we interview Julius' idol, Alexander the Great.